Primer for next week. I want you to know that football has indeed not left into a sinkhole. West Lafayette. We're going to have West Lafayette's current winningest coach. Shane Fry, the high school coach of West Lafayette High School, will be joining us next week, giving us an update as his team heads into the state tournament on what we can expect in West Lafayette football, give you some highlights and things like that. So you'll really enjoy Coach Fry, young, energetic, dynamic guy, and it'll be a lot of fun to hear from him. But today we get to hear from my favorite Purdue coach and about my favorite Purdue team. I think some of you know why, but I'd probably be against NCAA regulations for me to tell you, so I won't. But we're very honored to have Jeff Kent with us. Jeff started out as a runner at Valparaiso High School as a Viking, then went on scholarship to Ball State, and the second year there they found out that he was the wrong gender to run at Ball State. They no longer had a men's team, so he headed out way out west, and where he became a Hawkeye, finished his bachelor's degree and ran for the University of Iowa. Also did a little time at Delta State University down in Mississippi, where he got his master's degree. Coached at the University of Arkansas with our current head coach, and then joined the Purdue family in 2014, where he had an immediate impact. He coached one of the first All-American, right? Cross-country runner, Mr. McClintock, is now a professional runner. So, and then his women's team, the second year he was here, attained their first national ranking, and his men's team got their first national ranking votes in many years. So great impact. Has some terrific runners, including a couple local runners that will go unnamed, especially one, but he's having a great year and enjoying his position and doing a great job for the Boilermakers. So Jeff, you can give us a few comments.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Max, and to the Kiwanis Club for having me here. It's truly an honor, and I definitely want to thank everybody for your support, both of Purdue and the athletic department as well, because without a lot of you, believe me, it would not be possible. So thirdly, and I think probably most importantly, I can't tell you how refreshing it is to hear a group of people outside of a church setting be able to profess Christ's name, and I really appreciate that. That's very refreshing in the politically correct world we live in. So just want to thank you for that and for being here. So to give you a little background, we are obviously currently in the cross-country season, and I'd say on the men's side, we're definitely highlighted by our true freshman, Jarrett Carpenter out of Wayzata, Minnesota. He was a 405 miler, 859 2-miler out of high school, and he's done an exceptional job so far for us with kind of leading the cavalry, if you want to call it. And then on the women's side, we have obviously a wonderful transfer named Rachel Bales. I can say her name in public. And then we have our top recruit out of Minnesota, Forest Lake, Minnesota, actually, Emma Benner. So she's done a remarkable job for us. Ran the third fastest 5K time in school program history last weekend at Notre Dame, 16:41. And we're real thankful to have the people we do on our team. So to give you a little bit of a background, Coach Green and I worked together at the University of Arkansas for 3 of my 5 years. I believe he was there 17 years. And he brought me on board after year 2. So I've had the privilege of working with him now for a while, and he's truly an exceptional man and an exceptional leader. So our staff has been real fortunate to take over things as of 5 years ago, and we are real thankful to the support obviously Morgan Burke gave us during his tenure, and then obviously now we have Mike Babinski joining us from Georgia Tech. So we're real fortunate to have the support that we do. Again, not only from everybody here in the community, the JPC, but just anyone who supports our athletic program and all the teams in general. So as a whole, I would say our women's team is coming off of a 4th place finish last year, indoor track and outdoor track, and I believe we were 33rd at the national championship out of 350 some, I believe it is, Division I teams. Our men's team was 14th and 15th in the United States last year in track and field, and then we were 3rd at outdoor Big Tens. So aside from the 2 recruits that I headlined a few minutes ago out of Minnesota, we definitely have some other big hitters coming in. Chloe Abbott out of Northville, Michigan on the women's side. She's a track athlete, and then Jalil Brewer out of Indianapolis. He's another stud we have coming in as a thrower, and there's many others that I frankly just can't remember that are outside of my event group. So we definitely I would say are poised to do some pretty special things this year. It's been a work in progress when you have to come into a program and change a culture and raise the bar as far as the level of expectation is concerned and the level of competitive spirit that is concerned. So I believe, again, I believe in giving credit to our athletes well above of giving us, a pat on the back as coaches. They really have now bought into our philosophy, specifically Coach Green's is the head coach of you can do both, be a great student and be a great athlete in that order. And, they've done an exceptional job of that. We're very fortunate to have them on our team. And, again, as the saying goes, I guess we want to keep the train moving forward. So we've been very fortunate so far with, I think, the success we have had. And, again, all credit, again, to the hard work of our men and women. So that's kind of a summation of our group. Moving back to cross country, I would say, is we head to Terre Haute, Indiana a week from tomorrow, where we'll compete at the NCAA pre-national meet. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll head up to Minneapolis for the Big Ten Championship. 2 weeks after that, the regional meet in Madison, Wisconsin. And then, Lord willing, we'll have a couple teams at the NCAA Championship back in Terre Haute on the 19th of November. So everybody's doing well so far. We're about as healthy as you can possibly be in a heavy training block, and hopefully things will keep going in our direction. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions of me at all or our program. Yes, sir.
I'm really curious, what kind of training do you do, other than tell somebody to get out and run, but what do you do to train a cross-country runner to improve?
Sure. I think, first off, I think as a coach you wear many different hats. In some capacity you're a fill-in parent. In some capacity you're a guidance counselor. Most importantly, I would say a life skills coach and a teacher, an educator, and then you put your final hat on at the end of the day as a coach. And part of that process, as I talk about in our distance program, is the communication and confidence are probably the two focal points of our program. And so with that being said, there's a massive amount of time that is spent on the mental side of training. That's done with individual meetings with myself and our student athletes, where we'll not just chat about running, but life in general, as we call it, and making sure everything is going well in their life as best as I can, help them out. The other part of the component is obviously training the physiology side of what we do. And so a lot of that starts once they come into our program, either as an incoming freshman or as a transfer, and they'll have a summer training program to where it'll basically bring them to about 80% fitness when they get back onto campus. And then from there, it's a lot of miles, it's a lot of hard work, but again, I think anything that is worth anything in life comes through hard work. And so it's a lot of miles, but the whole program is catered to the individual in respect to the mileage. I do not lump everybody in one mileage category because it just doesn't work. I make it a little harder on myself and try to individualize things. So hopefully that answers that okay.
As a man who ran a 30-minute mile, is there a right and a wrong way to run?
There is, I would say. In high school, one common thing you will see is some people think that the race is won in the first 400 meters and they will dart out and kind of pay a miserable price after the first 800 due to their first 400 meters being at a personal record pace. So you have to be tactically intelligent in the sense of pacing yourself appropriately, but then being able to cover ground throughout the last couple kilometers of a race or meters of a race if it's something like a mile. So a lot of it is about pace sensitivity and understanding that, and then I think secondly is just knowing where you're at on a course or on the track and understanding, again, I think it all comes down to connecting the mind and the heart at the end of the day to accomplish something great. So, yes.
Do you have any West Lafayette recruits from their cross-country team?
Presently on the team?
Yes.
We have Grace Lockman out of West Lafayette, and then we have our wonderful transfer, Rachel Bales. So,
what is the distance in college?
College, we race on the men's side in 8K until the regional meet where we race a 10K and the national meet at 10K. And then the women are 5K until we get to the conference championship. I'm sorry, the pre-national meet, which is a 6K.
What does that convert to?
3 3/4 miles for the 6K. And then 8K, roughly 5 miles. 10K, 6.2. So it's a long, steady grind out of the course. So, yes?
How many scholarships do you get?
Well, the NCAA, if you're a fully funded sport on the women's side, you get 18. And that is technically spread throughout 3 sports: women's cross country, women's indoor track, and women's outdoor track. They are all recognized separately by the NCAA. On the men's side, we get 12.6. So being that we're an equivalency sport, unlike football where everybody's essentially on a full ride, we have to be very creative and tactful with how we divide up our money and how we spend it, because once that money is offered, it's gone. And you pray your investment pans out well. Yes.
How do you score cross-country meets?
In cross country, the top 5 of each team score, and they're represented by where they finish overall in a race. So if they're 13th individually, that's 13 points for the team. The objective is definitely to have the lowest score possible. So that's always our aim, no question about it. Yes?
Could you name, in your mind's eye, one of the top 5 collegiate distance runners? Identify what made them one of the top 5 distance runners.
I would say, presently, you're speaking of?
You can set any limit.
You know, it's kind of like, I talk about their team having interchangeable parts. I'd say that top 5 can be kind of interchangeable as well. I mean, you know, there's an individual by the name of Edward Cheserek out of Oregon who is unlike any other collegiate runner I've ever seen in my entire life, aside from Steve Prefontaine back in, you know, the 70s. He's I think a 9-time or more now, 12-time or more national champion individually. A lot of what plays into our sport is genetics, number one. That's probably 70-some% of it. And the other part of it, I would say, is the physical and mental limitations and demands that you place on yourself. So a lot of it, again, is having uninterrupted training, as I say, where you have less injuries, the better. And the healthier you are, the more uninterrupted training you have. And that ultimately will lead to a tremendous amount of success down the road. And then the one thing we talk about and preach with our team a lot is doing all the little things better than anybody else. And that starts with core, sleep, nutrition, hydration, and many other things.
So a quick follow-up. If you look at your collegiate athletes at Purdue today, what % of that population has the physiology, the genetics to be top 5?
In the United States, not many. And that's at any institution, not just Purdue. It's a very, very hard shell to crack. When you see the commercial out by the NCAA speaking about 99-point-some% of us go professional in something else other than our sport, it is absolutely true. You know, Matt McClintock was the first person to ever go professional, in the sport, in the history of our program, as far as I'm aware. And he's now running for Zap Fitness out in North Carolina, training for the marathon. And so it's an exceptionally hard thing to do because, number one, when our sport, as far as our sport is considered the professional level, unlike the NFL where you have multiple teams, or the NBA, multiple teams, Major League Baseball, multiple teams, there's a select few training groups out there, and there's a select amount of dollars to be spent by a lot of the big corporate sponsors. And so if you're one of the best, it doesn't automatically guarantee you a 6-figure salary. It might mean $40,000 salary, and then you're working part-time at a shoe store to try to make ends meet a little bit. And so it's a challenge. It's a very, very hard thing to do. Yes?
I know you run in all kinds of weather. I've got a freshman grandson that's running JV. I have a picture of him. It looks like he's a mud statue. But, how do you compare scores when you're running in the mud versus a clear day? It would be hard. You'd almost have to have a good day in order to have any chance, any kind of record or improvement, right?
The drier the course, the less wind, always the better. The one thing we talk to our team about is the only thing as it pertains to the weather that you can do is talk about it. And so it's kind of one of those, when you get out there, it doesn't really matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, suck it up and let's go get the job done. And so that's just being very respectfully blunt. But I would say ultimately when it comes into settings like that, like we faced at the intercollegiate meet a couple weeks ago at IU, where it was kind of a mud bath out there because of the torrential downpour that happened right before the race, it's all about placement. It's not about, it's kind of relaying to the athlete, hey, don't worry about setting a personal best today. It's not that kind of day. It's all about competing as hard as possible and placing as well as you can to the ultimate team score. Yes?
How far do you run in cross country? What's the length of the
Or is there a length?
Oh, of the course?
Yeah.
The women are 5K and 6K, so 3.1 and roughly 3 3/4 miles, and then the men are 8K and 10K, so almost 5 and 6.2 miles.
How did that spin off from a track team where you have races there that are longer and shorter?
Well, in track, the highest you go to is the 10K, and then, you know, in the middle distance, the lowest you go down to is the 800. And so a lot of that is just, again, when you get into track, the training switches pretty substantially. You're focusing a lot more on fast twitch muscle fiber work, training the body to run very fast for, you know, a relatively long period of time. So that's all kind of the individualization of the training program, where the athletes and I meet and talk and kind of come up with an approach that we think can work best for them and their overall long-term development over 4 to 5 years.
Is this a year-round training?
Yes. There's not much time off in our sport. A little bit of time after cross-country nationals, and then some time in the summer, and a little bit after the indoor Big Ten championship. So, you know, out of the 52 weeks, there's maybe 3 of them where they're not running a tremendous amount. So it's a lifestyle. Yeah. Yes?
If you run the 5K, what would be a typical week of practice? How long would you run?
Well, based on the individual, a lot of our women are running anywhere from 45 to 65 miles a week. Our men are anywhere from 70 to 82 miles a week right now, presently. And so, and then the work we do in there from an interval training standpoint or a long distance running standpoint, kind of covering all the different theories of training, is just dependent upon the individual. And so you're trying to kind of prepare for a 5K, you're covering 3.1 miles, and so at this point of the year we're really starting to transition into interval work where the pace picks up and it's not as much focused and derived on strength-based work. So.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Let's say you're a guy and you're getting ready to run a cross-country race in college. When do you eat and what do you eat?
That is definitely suited to the individual.
What was the question?
Oh, the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, what do you eat, when do you eat leading into a race?
If you're a guy running one of these
If you're a guy, it depends on the individual. A lot of our men will eat something simple, probably 3 to 4 hours prior to their warm-up, which is typically done 50 minutes before the race. Oatmeal, bagels, cereal, things like that. They're going to be kind of typically lighter on the stomach but leave you feeling somewhat full, are really popular amongst our team. And then having some Gatorade to replenish the body of electrolytes and water is definitely paramount the day of the race, I would say.
No
Yes.
steak or mashed potatoes, huh?
Probably not. Yes.
Sports like football and basketball have limitations on how much practice time the athletes can have per week. Do you have similar restrictions with track and field where it's individuals rather than a team
Correct.
mentality?
We're mandated to have 20 hours a week, no more than that by the NCAA, and we never go over that at all, or even close to 20, I should say. There's expectation that once we're done with practice that they're going to do the static stretching, the rehab in the training room, the ice bath, the foam roll to work out the kinks in the muscle. That's an expectation at this level as a Division I athlete in a Power 5 conference that they all should be doing, but that does not count against our 20 hours a week. Yes?
I want to ask a question about equipment. I can remember when Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, and everybody was in awe of that. Shoes have changed dramatically in that period of time, and I wonder if that has contributed, or some other kind of equipment has contributed to the lower times and the better records that we see just almost willy-nilly now.
I would personally say it's a very small fraction of the contribution they've made as far as the record times that are being put up anymore. What a lot of it has to do is that college coaches, high school coaches too, as they groom them for the college career, they're becoming just a lot more educated, and the research that's out there right now it has just been tremendous. The coaching symposiums that are going on from some of the best in the world in some instances, a lot of learning opportunities for younger coaches or older coaches. I think as coaches, it's kind of similar to a child. If you stop soaking up knowledge like a sponge, you're kind of a dry well, and you're not learning anymore. So a lot of what that has to do is just athletes being coached a lot more intelligently, understanding training principles and theory better than ever before because of all the knowledge and research that is out there now. I mean, where that was popular with Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, you're having probably 40 collegians or more doing that every indoor season. So it's just changed the dynamics of the sport tremendously. So, any other questions I can answer for anybody?
Yeah, what was your best time?
In the mile, I ran it in practice. It was 4:12, 5K 14:18, and 10K 30:34, 3K low 8:20. So nothing, in my opinion, that impressive by any means compared to what people are doing these days and at that time when I was in college. So everybody's just only getting better. And from the coaching side of things, we always have to stay obviously up to date with the most current research to make sure we're doing everything right by the athletes from a training standpoint and also as a person. So, yes.
Recently, West Lafayette had a family of 2 daughters and 1 son who were all really good long-distance runners. Did you have any contact with that family at any point in your career?
Well, the one thing we do as coaches is we always try to recruit our state first and get every possible interest we possibly can. As far as they were concerned, with being crafty with how I have to say it, based on laws, litigation, everything, they did not have a strong interest in pursuing Purdue, and they wanted to, I think, leave the city and go somewhere else just to be somewhere new, which I respect. So it's recruiting's an inexact science, but a lot of fun. So.
A lot of genetics associated with that, with one family having that many?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can have that for sure. So,
Schweitzer, go ahead. Last question.
Okay, give us a little word of encouragement for walking and jogging and so on at this age or any age. Does that give us better joint health and muscle health later on, or should we moderate that, or what do you recommend?
Well, I think the less sedentary lifestyle in any capacity, I think, is always a positive thing. And so, for sure, with overall fitness, health, joint mobility, I think again being able to move around as best as able and staying as fit as possible is always a good thing. So, I thank you very much, everybody, for having me today, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, again, on behalf of Kiwanis, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Just a side note, I do have a daughter in the program, and she couldn't be happier with, she was raised a Boilermaker, obviously, but first and foremost, she's a Boilermaker because of the coaching and the family environment that Coach Kent and the head coach, Coach Green, have at Purdue. So you'd be very, very proud as Boilermakers of the way that this program is being stewarded. How many of you are John Purdue Club members? Just curious. I told Coach Kent that you would have several supporters in here, and I knew that would be the case. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. And,